The great warship moved through space like a giant crystal mountain. Inside its glowing halls, alien beings gathered for an important meeting. The Zephyrians looked like tall, thin people with blue skin and 4 arms. Their eyes glowed softly. In the dim light of their ship, Commander Veltar walked into the main meeting room. His boots made soft clicking sounds on the smooth floor. He had called this meeting because war was coming. Their old enemies, the Korthik, were moving there. Ships closer to Zephyrian space. Something had to be done. The meeting room was huge and round. Holographic displays showed star maps and ship positions. Military leaders from many worlds sat around a large table. Their voices mixed together as they talked about battle plans and weapon counts. But Veltar noticed something strange. There was an empty chair at the table. It was made of the same crystal material as the rest of the room, but no one sat in it. The chair was placed in a position of honor, right next to where the most important leaders sat. Officer Kixall, Veltar called to a young Zephyrian near the wall. "Why is that chair empty? Are we waiting for someone?" Kixall's 4 arms moved nervously. His glowing eyes looked away from his commander. "Sir, that is the Terran seat. It must always be present at war meetings. This is galactic law." Terran? Veltar had heard this word before, but did not understand. "You mean the humans from Earth?" "Yes, sir." Kixall's voice was very quiet. "Every war council in the galaxy has this chair, but no human has ever sat in it." Veltar found this very strange. Earth was a small planet far from their space. The humans were a young species with simple technology. Their ships were slow, and their weapons were weak. Why would they need a chair at every war meeting? If they never come to meetings, why do we keep the chair? Veltar asked. Before Kixall could answer, Admiral Zexandra spoke from across the room. She was the oldest military leader present. Her blue skin was marked with scars from many battles. Her 4 arms moved with the grace of someone who had fought in space wars for hundreds of years. "Because it is the law," she said. Her voice carried the weight of authority. "Now, let us begin the real meeting." The War Council started in earnest. Holographic displays showed the positions of Korthik ships. The enemy had been building up their forces for months. Intelligence reports said they were planning to attack 3 Zephyrian colonies. "We have more ships," said General Quinger, pointing at the display. "Our plasma weapons are stronger than their bioships. We can destroy their main fleet in a direct attack." "Their numbers are growing," warned Captain Salandra. "Every day they add more ships. If we wait too long, they will be too strong to defeat." The discussion continued for hours. Battle plans were made and changed. Ship assignments were decided. Supply routes were planned. The Zephyrians were confident. They had won wars before. Their technology was advanced, and their warriors were brave. But through all the planning, some of the leaders kept looking at the empty chair. When they thought no one was watching, their eyes would move to the crystal seat. Some would look away, quickly, as if they had seen something frightening. Young Kixall noticed this too. He had never been in a war council before. Everything was new and exciting to him. But the empty chair made him feel strange. It was like having a ghost in the room. "Sir," he whispered to another officer, "why do they keep looking at that chair?" The older officer shook his head. "Do not ask such questions, young one. Some things are better left unknown." As the meeting went on, the war plans became more detailed. The Zephyrians would attack in 3 waves. First, their fast ships would destroy the Korthik scouts. Then, their main battle fleet would attack the enemy's home base. Finally, their ground forces would capture the Korthik colonies. "Victory will be ours in 30 days, declared General Quinter. "The Korthik will surrender or be destroyed." The other leaders agreed. They had superior numbers and better technology. The war would be swift and decisive. But still, some of them glanced at the empty chair. Admiral Zixandra stood up to end the meeting. All commanders return to your ships. Prepare for battle. We attack in 7 days. The military leaders began to leave. They talked excitedly about the coming war. Some bragged about how many enemy ships they would destroy. Others planned victory celebrations, but Kixall stayed behind. He approached Admiral Zixandra as she gathered her battle plans. "Admiral, may I ask you something?" The old warrior looked at him with tired eyes. "What is it, young officer? Why do we not contact Earth? If they have a seat at our war council, maybe they would help us fight the Korthik." Admiral Zixandra stopped moving. Her forearms became very still. She looked at Kixall for a long time without speaking. When she finally answered, her voice was different. It was not the voice of a confident military leader. It was the voice of someone who had seen things that still frightened her. "Because, young one, we are not yet ready to see our enemies turned to ash in ways that would make our nightmares seem pleasant." Kixall did not understand. "But Admiral, the humans are primitive. Their ships are slow, and their weapons are weak. How could they help us?" Admiral Zixandra looked at the empty chair. "Their capabilities are not what you think, officer. And that is precisely why we fear them." She gathered her things and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she turned back to Kixall. "Promise me something, young officer. Promise me that you will never suggest contacting Earth again. Not for this war, not for any war." "But why, Admiral?" "Because wars end when humans become involved. They always end, but not in ways that anyone expects, and not in ways that anyone wants to remember." Admiral Zixandra left the room. Kixall stood alone with the empty chair. He looked at it for a long time, trying to understand. The chair was beautiful, made of the finest crystal. But now it seemed different to him. It was not just empty. It was waiting. Outside the great ship, space was dark and full of stars. Somewhere in that darkness, the Korthik were preparing for war. And somewhere even farther away, on a small blue planet, humans went about their daily lives, unaware that their empty chair was watching over another conflict in the galaxy. The war would begin in 7 days. But already, the empty chair had changed everything. Deep underground on the Korthik home world, the war chamber buzzed with activity. The room was carved from solid black stone, its walls covered with strange symbols that glowed red in the darkness. The air smelled of metal and something else. Something alive. General Thrakmer stood before a massive display screen. His body was like a giant insect, with 4 powerful arms and compound eyes that could see in many directions at once. His outer shell was black and scarred from countless battles. When he moved, his joints made soft clicking sounds. "Show me the Zephyrian fleet positions," he commanded. The display changed to show star maps filled with moving dots. Each dot was a ship. The blue dots were Zephyrian vessels. The red dots were Korthik ships. There were many more red dots than blue ones. "We have them outnumbered 3-1, said Captain Sylvan, a younger Korthik with bright green markings on his shell. "Our bioships are faster than their crystal vessels. We can swarm them and overwhelm their defenses." General Thrakmer's mandibles clicked together as he studied the display. The Zephyrians are not fools. They would not start a war unless they believed they could win. What are we missing? Around the war chamber, other Korthik generals discussed strategy. There, voices made buzzing sounds that echoed off the stone walls. Some stood near smaller displays, planning attack routes. Others examined reports about Zephyrian weapon capabilities, but Captain Sylvan noticed something odd. In the center of the chamber, near the main planning table, there was a chair made of polished black stone. It was beautifully carved with intricate patterns, but no one sat in it. "General," Sylvan said, "why is that chair empty? Should we not invite our allies to this war council?" The buzzing in the chamber stopped. All the Korthic generals turned to look at the young captain. Some of their compound eyes reflected the red light from the displays. Others seemed to dim, as if they were afraid. General Thrakmer's 4 arms moved in a gesture of displeasure. "That chair is not for our allies, Captain. It is the Terran seat. It must be present at all war councils, but it must never be filled." "Terran?" Sylvan was confused. "You mean the humans from Earth?" "Yes." General Thrakmer's voice became very serious. "And you will never suggest inviting them to our war councils." "This is not a request, Captain. This is an order." Sylvan looked at the empty chair, then back at his general. "But General, I have studied the intelligence reports about Earth. Their technology is primitive. Their ships are slow, and their weapons are weak. They have not even left their own star system for any major exploration. How could they help us?" An old Korthic in the corner of the chamber made a sound like grinding metal. This was Keeper Velmoth, the oldest being in the room. His shell was gray with age, and his movements were slow, but his eyes were sharp and filled with knowledge. "Young Captain," Velmoth said, "you speak of things you do not understand. Human capabilities are not listed in any database, and that is precisely why we fear them." "But why?" Sylvan asked. "What makes them so dangerous?" General Thrakmer looked at the empty chair for a long moment. "Because wars end when humans become involved. They always end, but not in ways that make victory sweet." The war planning continued, but Sylvan could not stop thinking about the empty chair. The other generals discussed their bioship swarms and living weapons. They talked about overwhelming the Zephyrian defenses with sheer numbers. "Our ships can reproduce during battle," said General Klickar, his mandibles clicking excitedly. "For every ship they destroy, we can grow 2 more. They cannot match our regeneration capabilities." "Their crystal armor is strong," admitted General Zontrol, "but our acid weapons can dissolve it. Once their ships are weakened, our boarding parties can capture them." The Korthic were confident in their strategy. They had evolved for war. Their ships were living creatures that could heal from damage. Their weapons were biological, designed to eat through enemy defenses. They had defeated many other species using these tactics, but as the hours passed, Sylvan noticed that the older generals occasionally looked at the empty chair. When they thought no one was watching, their compound eyes would focus on the black stone seat. Some would look away quickly, as if they had seen something that disturbed them. During a break in the planning, Sylvan approached Keeper Velmoth. The old Korthic was studying ancient texts on a small display. "Keeper," Sylvan said quietly, "can you tell me about the humans? Why do we fear them so much?" Velmoth's old eyes looked up from his texts. "You want to know the truth, young captain?" "Yes, Keeper. I want to understand." Velmoth was quiet for a long time. Then he activated a small holographic display. Ancient symbols appeared in the air between them. "These are the old war texts," Velmoth said. "They contain the wisdom of our ancestors. Listen to what they say about warfare." The old Korthic began to read from the ancient symbols. His voice was like dried leaves rustling in the wind. "In the old wars, there were 3 rules that every warrior must follow. First, never fight a war you cannot win. Second, never trust an enemy who surrenders too quickly. And third, never let the humans know you are fighting at all." "But why?" "The third rule?" Sylvan asked. "Because," Velmoth said, "humans do not fight wars the way we do. They do not fight for honor or territory or resources. They fight to solve problems. And when humans solve problems, the problems disappear completely." Sylvan did not understand. "What do you mean?" "I mean, that when humans become involved in a war, the war stops being about who wins and who loses. It becomes about making sure the war never happens again. And humans are very good at making sure things never happen again. The war planning session resumed. The Korthic generals finalized their attack strategies. They would strike at 3 Zephyrian colonies simultaneously. Their bioship swarms would overwhelm the defenders while their main fleet attacked the enemy's home base. "Victory will be ours within 20 days, declared General Thrakmer. "The Zephyrians will surrender or be consumed by our living ships." Though other generals made sounds of agreement. They were eager for battle. Their bioships had been growing and reproducing for months. They had more than enough forces to overwhelm the Zephyrian defenses. But as the meeting was ending, General Thrakmer gave a final order that surprised everyone. "All communications officers," he said, "you will maintain complete radio silence during this war. No distress signals, no victory broadcasts, no communications with any species outside this conflict. Any officer who breaks radio silence will be executed." Captain Sylvan was confused. "But General, what if we need to call for reinforcements? What if we need to coordinate with our allies?" "We have no allies in this war," General Thrakmer replied, "and we will not call for reinforcements. This war is between the Korthic and the Zephyrians. No one else must know it is happening." "But why, General?" General Thrakmer looked at the empty chair one last time. "Because, Captain, there are some beings in this galaxy who should never be awakened, and humans sleep very lightly. As the war council ended, the Korthic generals left to prepare their fleets. They talked excitedly about the coming battle. Some discussed how they would divide the conquered Zephyrian colonies. Others planned breeding programs for their bioships after the war. But Sylvan remained behind with Keeper Velmoth. He looked at the empty chair and tried to understand what he had learned. "Keeper," he said, "have you ever seen a human?" "Once," Velmoth replied. "Long ago, when I was young like you. A human came to observe a small war between 2 minor species. He asked questions and took notes. He seemed harmless." "What happened?" "The war ended 3 days later. Both sides signed a peace treaty. But it was not a normal peace treaty, Captain. It was a surrender. Both sides surrendered to each other, and then they both surrendered to the human observer." "How is that possible?" "Because," Velmoth said, "the human had shown them what their war really was. Not a conflict between 2 proud species, but a waste of resources that could be better used for other purposes. Once they understood this, they could not continue fighting." Sylvan looked at the empty chair with new understanding. "So the chair is not there to invite them. It is there to remind us." "Yes, young Captain. It reminds us that there are beings in this galaxy who fight wars differently than we do. And that is why we must never let them know we are fighting it." All outside the war chamber, the Korthic fleet prepared for battle. Bioships grew in their breeding pools. Living weapons were fed and trained. Warriors sharpened their claws and checked their armor. But deep in the chamber, the empty chair waited in the darkness. It was not just a piece of furniture. It was a warning. A reminder that some things in the galaxy were more dangerous than any enemy, and that some victories were worse than any defeat. The war would begin soon. But the empty chair would ensure that it remained a secret, hidden from the sleeping giants who lived on a small blue planet far away. The galactic archives floated in space between star systems, neutral territory where no species could claim ownership. The station looked like a giant library made of light. Its walls formed from pure energy that could store infinite amounts of information. Librarian Quindal moved through the data halls on legs made of living crystal. Her body was transparent, and lights moved inside her like thoughts made visible. She had worked in the archives for 300 years, keeping the galaxy's knowledge safe and organized. today was unusual. She had received 2 requests for the same classified files. The first came from Zephyrian Intelligence. The second came from Korthic military records. Both wanted access to the same documents: Terran incident reports, maximum security classification. Quindle found this strange. The Zephyrians and Korthic were about to go to war with each other. Why would they both want information about humans at the same time? She moved to the restricted section of the archives. Here, the walls were darker, and the energy fields hummed with warning signals. Only the most sensitive information was stored. In this area, files that could start wars or end them. Access Terran incident reports, she said to the archive's main computer. Warning, the computer replied. These files are classified maximum security. Access requires special authorization. Quindle showed her credentials. As head librarian, she had access to almost everything in the archives. But these files were different. They required not just authorization, but a reason for access. Research purpose. Understanding current galactic tensions. She entered into the system. The files began to appear around her as holographic displays. But most of the information was blocked out with black bars. Only fragments of text were visible. Even with her high-level access, the full truth was hidden. The first file was labeled First Contact Incident, Hegemony States. V.S. Collective Worlds. Order Dispute Resolution. Quindle read the available text carefully. 47 years ago, 2 alien civilizations had been fighting over control of 12 star systems. The war had been going on for decades with no clear winner. The Hegemony States were a group of military-focused planets with advanced energy weapons. The Collective Worlds were a trading alliance with strong defensive systems. Both sides had been looking for allies to tip the balance of power. Someone had suggested contacting Earth. The humans were a young species, but they had recently developed faster-than-light travel. Perhaps they could provide resources or labor. For the war effort, the file showed that both sides had sent ambassadors to Earth. The humans seemed interested in helping. They agreed to send observers to learn about the conflict and see how they might assist. 2 humans had been selected for the mission. The first was Lisa Parker, a diplomatic attaché with experience in conflict resolution. The second was Captain Ryan Stone, a military advisor with a background in strategic planning. Quindle found this part of the file interesting. The alien civilizations had expected the humans to be impressed by their military might. They invited the human observers to their war councils, thinking they would see advanced technology and want to join the winning side. But the next part of the file was mostly blocked out. Only scattered words were visible: tactical analysis, vulnerability assessment, strategic recommendations, immediate ceasefire request. The timeline showed that Captain Stone had observed both alien fleets for exactly 17 hours. During that time, he had asked questions about ship designs, weapon systems, and battle tactics. The questions seemed innocent, like a primitive species trying to understand advanced technology. But then something changed. The file showed urgent communications between the 2 alien sides. Messages about critical vulnerabilities and previously unknown weaknesses and immediate security. Concerns. Quindle moved to the next file. This one was labeled Demonstration Incident, Hegemony Battle Fleet 7. The text was heavily redacted, but the basic facts were clear. The Hegemony States had decided to test human military capabilities. They thought it would be easy to defeat the primitive Earth ships and force humanity to serve their war effort. A Hegemony battle fleet had approached Earth's solar system. The fleet consisted of 12 heavy cruisers and 48 escort vessels. They had weapons that could destroy planets and shields that could deflect most known attacks. The file showed what happened next in a single, chilling entry. Human response time, 47 minutes. Hegemony battle fleet status, total loss, Human casualties, 0. Weapon signatures, unknown. Recommendation: immediate ceasefire and withdrawal. Quindle stared at the entry for a long time. A battle fleet that could destroy planets had been completely eliminated in less than an hour. And the humans had suffered no casualties at all. But the most disturbing part was the last line. Weapon signatures, unknown. The Galactic Archives contained information about every known weapon system in the galaxy. If the weapon signatures were unknown, it meant the humans had used technology that no one had ever seen before. The next file was even more restricted. It was labeled Peace Protocol Implementation, Terran Accords. This file showed that both alien civilizations had immediately sued for peace, not with each other, but with humanity. Within days of the demonstration incident, both sides had agreed to end their decades-long war and establish what they called the Terran Protocols. The Terran Protocols were a set of galactic laws that every spacefaring species had to follow. The rules were simple but absolute. First, an empty chair must be maintained at every war council to represent human interests, even though no human would ever sit in it. Second, no military conflict could involve communication with Earth or human space without special authorization from both sides. Third, any military action that might attract human attention must be reported to galactic authorities immediately. Fourth, all species must maintain updated records of human contact protocols, even though such contact was forbidden during conflicts. Quindle found more files as she searched deeper into the archives. Each one told a similar story. Different alien civilizations had tried to involve humans in their wars. Every time, the same thing happened. The humans would send observers who asked innocent questions. They would analyze the military situation with terrifying efficiency. Then they would offer to help resolve the conflict. The help always came in the form of a demonstration. A small human ship would arrive and display capabilities that made both sides realize their war was pointless. The conflicts would end immediately, with both sides agreeing to the Terran Protocols. In 47 years, 36 interstellar wars had ended this way. Every time, the result was the same. Complete victory for the humans, but not through conquest. Victory through making the war itself irrelevant. The files revealed something even more disturbing. The humans apparently did not consider these incidents to be military victories. In their own records, they listed them as diplomatic missions or technical demonstrations or equipment testing. To them, ending interstellar wars was routine maintenance. Quindle found one final file that made her crystal body grow dim with fear. It was labeled Current Threat Assessment, Human Military Capabilities. The file was almost completely redacted, but one paragraph was visible. Current human military. Doctrine appears to focus on conflict prevention rather than conflict resolution. Standard procedure involves demonstrating overwhelming capability to discourage further hostilities. Actual military capacity remains unknown, but is estimated to exceed the combined capabilities of all known galactic civilizations. Recommendation: avoid all contact during military conflicts. Quindle understood now why both the Zephyrians and Korthik had requested these files. They were about to go to war with each other, and they wanted to make sure their conflict would not attract human attention. But as she prepared to send the files to both sides, she noticed something that made her crystal form flicker with worry. The current Zephyrian-Korthik conflict was taking place near the Meridian Nebula, which was along several major trade routes. If the fighting spread, it might disrupt commercial traffic. And disrupted trade routes had a way of attracting attention from Earth's monitoring systems. Quindle quickly sent the files to both civilizations, along with a personal message. Recommend immediate containment of all military actions. Proximity to trade routes creates risk of third-party observation. She hoped both sides would understand the warning. The empty chairs in their war councils were there for a reason. They were reminders that some wars were too dangerous to fight, not because of the enemy, but because of who might notice. As she filed the access records, Quindle noticed something else. The human diplomatic attaché, Lisa Parker, had requested access to the Galactic Archives database 6 months ago. She had been researching trade route security and deep space monitoring protocols. The humans were already watching. They had been watching all along. Quindle sealed the files and returned to her normal duties. But she kept monitoring the communications, channels between Zephyrian and Korthik space. She hoped the two sides would be careful. She hoped they would remember the lessons of the past, because if they did not, the empty chairs would not stay empty much longer. And once the humans filled those chairs, the war would end in ways that no one wanted to experience. The archives hummed quietly as they processed the day's information. Somewhere in their vast data, the Meridian Nebula glowed with purple and gold clouds of gas and dust. It was beautiful, but today it was also deadly. Two great fleets faced each other across the void, their weapons charged and ready for battle. The Zephyrian fleet moved in perfect formation. Their crystal ships caught the light from nearby stars and reflected it in brilliant patterns. Each vessel was a work of art, smooth and elegant, but armed with plasma weapons that could cut through any armor. Admiral Zixandra stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the tactical displays. Her 4 arms moved across the control panels as she directed her fleet into battle position. Around her, younger officers prepared for the fight of their lives. "All ships report ready for combat," announced Commander Veltar. "Plasma cannons are charged, and shields are at maximum power." On the other side of the nebula, the Korthak bioships moved like a swarm of angry insects. Their living hulls pulsed with dark energy, and their weapon pods opened like hungry mouths. These ships could heal from damage and grow stronger during battle. General Thrakmer commanded the Korthik fleet from his war vessel. His compound eyes watched multiple displays at once, tracking the movement of both fleets. His 4 arms gestured commands to his officers, preparing for the assault. "Bioships are ready for combat," reported Captain Sylvan. "All weapon organisms are fed and eager for battle." The battle began at exactly 1430 Galactic Standard Time. The Zephyrian fleet attacked first, their plasma beams cutting through space like swords of light. The Korthik responded with living missiles that twisted and turned to avoid the enemies. Defensive fire. Space filled with explosions and energy blasts. Crystal ships and bioships danced a deadly dance among the gas clouds of the nebula. Some vessels were destroyed immediately, their crews lost in the void. Others were damaged, but continued fighting. The battle was fierce and evenly matched. The Zephyrians had superior technology, but the Korthik had greater numbers. As ships were destroyed, the Korthik biovessels began to reproduce, growing new fighters from their own hull material. For 6 hours, the battle raged. Both fleets suffered heavy losses, but neither side was willing to retreat. This was more than a military conflict. It was a war for survival, with each species believing that defeat would mean extinction. But then disaster struck. A damaged Korthik bioship, its navigation systems failing, began to drift away from the battle. The ship's organic brain was dying, and its communication systems were sending automatic distress signals on all frequencies. "Emergency," the bioship broadcast. "Korthik Battle Fleet 7 requires immediate assistance. Coordinates follow. Any vessel capable of rescue operations, please respond." The message was transmitted on standard galactic emergency frequencies. These were channels monitored by all spacefaring species, including the deep space listening posts that Earth had established throughout the galaxy. On the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Zixandra received the intelligence report with growing horror. What did you say? She demanded. Admiral, the communications officer reported, the Korthak distress signal was broadcast on all frequencies. It has been intercepted by monitoring stations throughout this sector. Which monitoring stations? The officer checked his displays. Zephyrian stations, neutral trading posts, and ... He paused, his forearms trembling. Human Deep Space Monitoring Station Alpha 7 in the Centauri system. Admiral Zixandra felt her blood turn cold. Are you certain? Yes, Admiral. The signal was received and acknowledged by the human station. They have logged it as an active. Military engagement requiring assessment. On the Korthak command ship, General Thrakmer was receiving the same terrible news. His compound eyes focused on the communications display with growing fear. General, Captain Sylvan reported, our damaged bioship has been broadcasting distress signals for the past 18 minutes. The signals have been intercepted by multiple monitoring stations. Shut down all communications immediately, General Thrakmer ordered. No more distress signals, no more battle communications. Complete radio silence. Sir, it may be too late. The human monitoring station has already logged our position and fleet strength. They are tracking our movements. General Thrakmer says. Mandibles clicked together in distress. Have they responded to the distress signal? Not yet, sir. But according to our intelligence, human response time to galactic emergencies is typically between 40 and 60 minutes. The general looked at his chronometer. The first distress signal had been sent 23 minutes ago. If the humans followed their usual pattern, they would arrive in less than half an hour. Meanwhile, on Earth, the North American Aerospace Defense Command was bustling with activity. The mountain facility had been monitoring deep space communications for decades, keeping track of alien activities throughout the galaxy. Colonel Jake Morrison stood before a wall of displays showing star charts and signal intercepts. He was a veteran of many classified operations, and he recognized the pattern immediately. Communications specialist Chun, he called to a young woman at a nearby workstation. What's the situation with that alien distress signal? Amy Chun looked up from her screens. Sir, we've intercepted multiple distress calls from what appears to be a damaged alien vessel. The signals indicate a large-scale military engagement in the Meridian Nebula. How large? Approximately 60 vessels on each side, sir. Energy signatures suggest advanced plasma weapons and biological warfare systems. This is a major interstellar conflict. Colonel Morrison studied the data. Any attempts to contact us directly? No, sir. The distress signals appear to be automated emergency broadcasts. But both fleets are now maintaining radio silence, as if they're trying to avoid further communication. Trying to avoid our attention, more likely, Morrison muttered. He picked up a secure communication device. General Wells, we have a situation. General Patricia Wells appeared on the screen from her office in the Pentagon. She was a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who had overseen Earth's secret involvement in galactic affairs for over a decade. What's the situation, Colonel? Major alien conflict in the Meridian Nebula. Both sides are maintaining radio silence now, but we've already intercepted their distress signals. They know we're monitoring them. General Wells was quiet for a moment. Are they requesting our assistance? Not directly, but the distress signals were broadcast on emergency frequencies. Technically, they're asking any available vessel to provide aid. I see. General Wells understood the implications. Initiate Protocol 7, Colonel, but keep it low-key. Single ship response. Understood, General. I'll contact Captain Turner immediately. Protocol 7 was a response plan that had been developed but never used. It was designed for situations where alien conflicts might require human intervention, but where a full military response would be inappropriate. The protocol called for a single exploration vessel to respond to the emergency. The ship would appear to be a simple research vessel, but it would carry the latest in human technology. The goal was to assess the situation and encourage peaceful resolution. Captain Ben Turner received the orders aboard the U's Horizon, currently conducting deep space research near the Tau Ceti system. The Horizon looked like a civilian science vessel, but it was actually one of the most advanced ships in the human fleet. Set course for the Meridian Nebula, Captain Turner ordered his crew. Maximum speed. We have a diplomatic mission to conduct. The Horizon's engines came to life, and the ship began its journey toward the conflict zone. The vessel could travel faster than any known alien ship, using technology that human scientists had developed in secret. Back in the Meridian Nebula, both alien fleets had stopped fighting. The battle that had raged for hours came to a sudden halt as both sides realized what had happened. Admiral Zixandra opened a direct communication channel to General Thrakmer. For the first time in decades, the two enemy commanders spoke to each other without hatred in their voices. General, Admiral Zixandra said, "We have a problem that is bigger than our war." "I agree, Admiral," General Thrakmer replied. "The humans are coming. My intelligence officers estimate they will arrive within 30 minutes. What do you suggest we do?" "We must end this conflict immediately. Whatever our differences, they are nothing compared to what the humans might do if they decide our war is a problem that needs solving." Admiral Zixandra looked at the empty chair on her bridge. She had seen it every day for years, but now she understood what it really meant. It was not just a symbol. It was a warning. "I propose an immediate ceasefire," she said. "Both fleets will withdraw to neutral positions. We can resume our conflict later when the humans are no longer watching." "Agreed," General Thrakmer said quickly. "All Corthic vessels will power down their weapons and maintain position. We will not fire unless fired upon." "Understood." "All Zephyrian ships will do the same." But even as both fleets moved to safe distances, their commanders knew it might be too late. The humans had been monitoring the battle for over an hour. They had logged the positions of both fleets, recorded their weapon signatures, and identified their capabilities. The damage was done .27. Minutes after the first distress signal, long-range sensors detected a new contact approaching the storage. The silence in both alien fleets was complete. Every crew member, from the highest admiral to the lowest technician, stared at their displays in shock. The asteroid that had been there moments before was simply gone. Not destroyed, not broken. Apart, but erased from existence, as if it had never been there at all. Captain Ben Turner of the U.S. Horizon continued speaking in the same calm, friendly voice he had used since arriving. "I hope that demonstration helps clarify Earth's position on conflict resolution. We find that visual aids are often helpful in diplomatic discussions." Admiral Zixandra tried to speak, but no words came out. Her forearms trembled as she looked at the empty space where the asteroid had been. Her tactical officers were running scan after scan, trying to find some trace of what had happened. There was nothing. Not even particles of dust remained. General Thrakmer was having the same problem. His compound eyes stared at the display while his mind tried to process what he had seen. His bioships were sending him confused signals, their organic sensors unable to understand what had happened to the asteroid. "Admiral Zixandra, General Thrakmer," Captain Turner said politely. "Are you still there? I wanted to discuss the framework for your peace negotiations." Admiral Zixandra forced herself to respond. "Yes, Captain Turner, we are here." That was an impressive demonstration. "Thank you," Captain Turner replied. "We've found that clear communication helps prevent misunderstandings. Now, regarding your territorial dispute, have you considered establishing a neutral zone between your respective areas of influence?" General Thrakmara's mandibles clicked nervously. Captain Turner, perhaps we should clarify something. The Korthik Empire and Zephyrian Alliance have been in conflict for over 200 years. Our differences are not easily resolved. 200 years? Captain Turner sounded genuinely surprised. That does seem like a long time to spend fighting over territory. Have you tried economic cooperation instead of military competition? Both alien commanders looked at each other through their communication screens. The human was talking about their ancient war as if it were a minor business disagreement. Captain, Admiral Zixandra said carefully, our species have fundamental differences in biology, culture, and philosophy. We have tried diplomacy before. It has always failed. I see, Captain Turner said thoughtfully. Well, let me share Earth's perspective on this situation. From our analysis, both of your fleets appear to be roughly equal in strength. You have similar technological capabilities and comparable resources. A prolonged conflict between you would likely result in mutual destruction with no clear winner. That analysis is accurate, General Thrakmar admitted reluctantly. So the question becomes, Captain Turner continued, what would you prefer to achieve through this conflict that you could not achieve through cooperation? The question was so simple that both commanders found it impossible to answer. They had been fighting for so long that the original reasons for the war had become less important than the war itself. The Korthik Empire requires living space for our expanding population, General Thrakmar said finally. The Zephyrian Alliance needs to protect our colonies from Korthik aggression, Admiral Zixandra added. Interesting, Captain Turner mused. General Thrakmar, how much living space would satisfy your population needs? We require at least 12 habitable worlds with suitable atmospheric conditions. And Admiral Zixandra, how many colonies need? Protection from potential threats? We have 18 colonies that require defensive coverage. Excellent, Captain Turner said. According to our stellar cartography database, there are over 400 unclaimed habitable worlds within 50 light years of your current territories. Would it not be more efficient to colonize new worlds rather than fight over existing ones? Both commanders felt foolish. The human was right, of course. There were plenty of unclaimed worlds in the galaxy. But admitting this would mean admitting that their war had been pointless from the beginning. Captain, Admiral Zixandra said, colonizing new worlds requires significant resources and cooperation between species. Our peoples do not trust each other enough for such cooperation. Trust can be built through shared experiences, Captain Turner replied. For example, joint colonization projects where both species work together to develop new worlds. Each species contributes their unique strengths and both benefit from the results. General Thrakmar found himself actually considering the idea. The Korthik were excellent at biological engineering and could create living habitats on almost any planet. The Zephyrians had advanced energy technology that could power massive construction projects. Such cooperation would require careful planning and mutual guarantees, he said slowly. Of course, Captain Turner agreed. Would you like Earth to serve as a neutral mediator for such negotiations? Both commanders felt the same chill they had experienced earlier. Human mediation was exactly what they had been trying to avoid. That is very generous, Admiral Zixandra said, but we would not want to impose on humanity's time and resources. No imposition at all, Captain Turner assured her. We have extensive experience with interspecies cooperation projects. In fact, we could provide some initial support to help establish the first joint colonies. The offer sounded reasonable, but both alien leaders knew what it really meant. If they accepted human help, they would be accepting human oversight. And human oversight meant following human rules. What kind of support? General Thrakmar asked, despite himself. Technical assistance, resource allocation guidance, conflict resolution protocols, Captain Turner listed. We could also provide transportation for colonization equipment. Our ships are quite efficient for cargo operations. Both commanders remembered the probe that had erased the asteroid. If human cargo ships were anything like their other vessels, they could probably move entire planets if necessary. Captain Turner, Admiral Zixandra said, "This is all very interesting, but we need time to consider these proposals. Perhaps we could schedule formal negotiations at a later date." "Certainly," Captain Turner replied. "However, I should mention that Earth will need to file a report about this incident with the Galactic Council. Military conflicts in this area could affect civilian shipping routes." Both leaders realized they were trapped. The humans were not threatening them directly, but they were making it clear that the war could not continue without consequences. What would prevent the need for such a report? General Thrakmer asked. "A formal peace agreement between your species," Captain Turner said simply. "If the conflict is officially resolved, there would be no need to report ongoing military threats to civilian traffic." Admiral Zixandra and General Thrakmer looked at each other through their communication link. They both understood what was happening. The human was not forcing them to make peace. He was simply explaining the consequences of not making peace. "Captain Turner," Admiral Zixandra said, "if we were to agree to a ceasefire and begin peace negotiations, what role would Earth play in the process?" "Only what you request," Captain Turner assured her. "We could provide neutral meeting facilities, technical expertise, or simply observe to ensure fair proceedings. The choice would be entirely yours. And if we chose to handle negotiations ourselves, without human involvement, that would be perfectly acceptable," Captain Turner said. "We would simply need documentation that the conflict has been resolved peacefully." Both commanders realized they had been given a choice, but it was not really a choice at all. They could make peace on their own terms, or they could make peace on human terms. But they could not continue the war. "General Thrakmer, Admiral," Zixandra said formally, "I propose that we end hostilities immediately and begin formal peace negotiations." "I accept your proposal, Admiral Zixandra," General Thrakmer replied. "The Korthic Empire is willing to pursue peaceful resolution of our differences." "Excellent news," Captain Turner said cheerfully. "I'll note in my report that both parties have agreed to peaceful negotiations. Is there anything else I can help you with today?" "No, Captain Turner," both commanders said at the same time. "Thank you for your assistance." "Happy to help," Captain Turner replied. "The UE's Horizon will remain in the area for a few more hours to ensure safe passage for civilian traffic. Have a pleasant day." The communication link closed, leaving both alien fleets alone in space. The great war that had been planned for months and fought for hours was over. Not because one side had won, but because both sides had realized they could not afford to lose. Admiral Zixandra looked at the empty chair on her bridge. For the first time, she was grateful it had remained empty. She understood now that the chair was not a symbol of human absence. It was a symbol of human restraint. General Thrakmer gave orders for his bioships to return to Korthic space. As his fleet prepared to leave, he thought about the ancient warning from Keeper Velmoth. Never let the humans know you are fighting at all. They had failed to follow that warning, and the result was exactly what the old texts had predicted. The war was over, not because it had been won or lost, but because it had been solved. On the U's Horizon, Captain Turner filed his mission report. "Diplomatic contact with 2 alien civilizations successful," he wrote. "Minor territorial dispute resolved through peaceful negotiation. No direct military actio.